Alright everyone, I'm going to keep this brief and to the point. I mentioned in my update video that I'm going to be doing these commentaries more often and that I had one in the oven for you guys. Well, here you go. I know in another video I said I'd sobered up to idiots on the side I used to agree with. And in that, Actman's Icon was among the group I no longer enjoy listening to on YouTube. That's still entirely true, and if before or even after this video you enjoy his content, more power to you. I personally just don't like how in his modern reviews and videos in general, he has points that really suck when put under a microscope. In this one that I chose to watch for whatever reason, I honestly can't tell you, I thought almost all of his points were flimsier than a moist Slim Jim. So I'm going to go through them, explain my perspective, and hopefully entertain you all. You're a small audience, but an awesome one. Let's get this underway because just like with the last one, I want this out of my head and off my hard drive ASAP.
Oh, what's up everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today I'm paying tribute and respect to some dead and forgotten video game franchises.
Okay folks, I swear I'm gonna try to resist the urge to turn this into a solo attempt at an EFAP, but when I was playing this back in my editor, I noticed this and couldn't help to point it out. One of these so-called dead and forgotten franchises in this pile is a blatant lie. Take a wild guess at which one of these doesn't belong here. If you guess Titanfall 2, you win the prize of me congratulating you all. I'm not even going to dive into that one, as it's one of the most praised shooters in the last 5 years, and it has its third game on the chopping block after Apex Legends runs its course. Both really great games, by the way. So that makes the inclusion of this case a bigger mistake, but you know what? I'll be generous and give you the benefit of the doubt on this one and say it was a mistake.
Now, some of these don't deserve to lie here. Others, I'll admit, are past their prime and really don't deserve a shot at redemption. But one thing is certain, there are far too many dead, forsaken, or forgotten game franchises in this world.
That's the nature of art. When the time comes, just like anything else in this finite world.
So get your F key ready, maybe a liter of Mountain Dew, and let's jump straight into this.
When I say dead, forgotten, or forsaken, it could mean a couple things. Maybe the series hasn't gotten a new entry in several years, or perhaps the latest title was on par with Fallout 76.
16 times the detail.
Or maybe these franchises simply turned their backs on what made them so popular and beloved in the first place. In any case, these franchises have seen better days, for one reason or another.
Alright, here's the biggest problem of all with this video. The jumbling of those words. When I click on a video titled Dead and Forgotten Franchises, I expect that, not a video about a guy getting on a soapbox about a pile of franchises that developers have long since moved on from. Dead, Forgotten, and Forsaken each have different meanings than the ones you're about to apply to these game series. You're painting with far too broad of strokes and labeling these series as dead when there's a variety of factors as to why some are more dead than others. So next time try and narrow it down because some of the points you bring to justify certain series on this list, they're poorly thought out and can be easily debunked, so that's what I'm here for.
So we're gonna run through a bunch of different game series, and I'll tell you why I thought they were awesome or not, and what they could possibly bring back to the video game industry. Let's begin with a series that has layers. Shrek games.
I know this is a joke entry, but the joke would have been better if saved towards the end. That way we all end on a high note.
With the last entry Shrek Forever after releasing in 2010, is it any wonder why the last 10 years have been so terrible? Just kidding, but not really. Let's begin with a famous duo that's near and dear to my heart.
Wake up! Grab Russian, put a little makeup! I discussed the way to shake up! Why'd you leave the kids up on the table? Here you go, create another fable! You wanted to! Grab a Russian, put a little makeup! You wanted to! I discussed the way to shake up! You wanted to! Why'd you leave the kids up on the table? You wanted to!
Ever since Banjo Tooie released 20 years ago, fans have eagerly awaited a new game that didn't involve fucking cars. After Microsoft's buyout of Rareware in 2002, the once beloved company took a nosedive into irrelevance.
Yep, because they made the unfortunate mistake of jumping into experimental technology, thinking they could pioneer it into a new norm. Too bad they lacked the foresight to see how much of a waste of time and money the Kinect was.
These two games were some of the most kick-ass 3D platformers, and seriously gave Mario 64 a run for its money, with amazing level design, an iconic soundtrack that I've used in countless videos, and the most carefree, genuine sense of humor.
If that's what you call it, go for it. I've never played any of the Banjo games, and I have no intention to, but that's just me. The music is half decent from what I've heard in your videos though, I'll say that much. Couldn't help but pick a scene that sounds like Goofy when he slathers on the peanut butter in front of Pluto, could you?
The bear and bird have been among the most requested characters for Smash, and after 19 years, hope was finally delivered. You know what? Seeing Banjo-Kazooie in Smash, it's all I needed. I never expected them to get a new game because, let's face it, 3D platformers that don't have Mario in the title are a rare breed nowadays.
Oh, totally, man. Mario single-handedly squashed this whole genre by making a monopoly on the 3D platform genre. I mean, fuck, you'd have an easier time finding a lobby in Battlefront 2 on the OG Xbox. They're that rare of a breed. I mean, they must be. You said it was, after all. And you wouldn't make a baseless claim like that without doing some research now, would you? Nah, of course not.
But in a shocking twist, Steve Mails, the creator, tweeted this. When we were working on Banjo-Tooie, a certain game was released that involved Nintendo characters duking it out. 20 years later, it could well be the game that saved Banjo-Kazooie. What will next year bring for Bear and Bird?
That's it? That's what you're about to congratulate them on and say there's hope for the series having a renaissance? All he said was Smash fans kept Banjo alive in memory, and he wonders what they're going to petition for next. This isn't anything special whatsoever. Well, to be fair, this claim is taken directly from Twitter, so that has about as much validity as a 15-year-old making a school shooter threat.
Steve, my man, I cannot wait to find out.
Considering the lukewarm reception Yooka-Laylee got, a mixed bag is what you're about to get, if anything at all.
2K Games, would you kindly develop a new BioShock already?
A man chooses. A slave obeys.
You know what, I'm going to keep giving my perspective on the entries on this little list of, quote, dead series, but you might as well take a shot every time I say I never played any of the mentioned series. You're not going to die, but your throats are really going to hate me. And yes, that doesn't mean I've never played a BioShock game. Sue me.
You could argue that BioShock is not a forgotten franchise, and I'd agree. Shut up, Atlas, I know who you are. And I'd agree with you.
Then I expect a damn good reason as to why it's on this list. Just a single legitimate reason why it can be dubbed as forgotten or dead in your eyes, that's all I ask. Will we get this? Why am I even asking?
Honestly, with BioShock 2, Infinite, and the Burial at Sea DLC, it feels like the story is pretty much wrapped up.
Won't say for sure since I don't care to look further than what Wikipedia has to offer on this series, but I'm gonna go with my gut and say yes. The only reason why there wouldn't be a BioShock Infinite 2 or whatever it's going to be is because either A, the creators have no intentions to add on to what they finished 8 years ago, or B, the last release sold poorly and the franchise is in solitary confinement until they think they can play the nostalgia card again. So, in the spirit of last-minute research before I start compiling all this, I took a shot in the dark and found the search results you're seeing right now on screen. So, Actman celebrate, as well as the other fans who'd want this. And as for what it means about my previous statement, well, I'm gonna let 2K Games either prove me right or prove me wrong on how this plays out. Either way, I don't really care. Back to your regularly scheduled commentary.
I'm not sure if I'm asking them to dredge up a corpse that gracefully went out on its own terms, but at the same time, BioShock was such a masterpiece that revolutionized the FPS genre, so why not give it another shot?
If it's a masterpiece of the genre, then that means it's perfect and can only be copied. What more could they do that wasn't done in the sequels? Honestly.
Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Remember when Rockstar used to develop video games? I do.
We all do. Thank fuck you didn't use a Pepperidge Farms joke. Well, he just used the next worst thing. Should have seen that one coming.
The Xbox, GameCube, and PS2 were probably my favorite generation of consoles because there were just so many oddball titles.
I agree, that generation was a good one for the consoles, back when gaming was finally settling into the third dimension, and was a lot more vibrant reflection of the geeks who played them. Too bad things also took a dark turn with the introduction of paid online on Xbox, and the oversaturation of ugly games for the sake of, quote, realism, unquote.
Nobody gave a fuck, and everyone was experimenting.
Pretty much the mindset of confused boys and chicks when they go to college.
Enter Bully, yet another Rockstar game that allows you to be a total piece of shit and have fun doing it.
Yet another game I've never played. I just thought it looked too lame and too tame compared to the rest of Rockstar's lineup.
Bully was a more PG-13 take on the Grand Theft Auto formula.
Oh, mini rant here. The lack of cars means this is not a take on the GTA formula. Like, at all. The only thing Bully and GTA titles have in common is that they're third-person action sandbox games that specialize in creating a populated environment for the player to abuse. Other than that, they're hardly comparable. It's like the fool Dartigan who tried to say Jedi Fallen Order is this new generation's Jedi Academy or Force Unleashed type of game when they're worlds apart in terms of mechanics and power of their game engines, yada fucking yada. Mini rant over.
Putting you in the shoes of high school douchebag Jimmy. Could ride skateboards, shoot slingshots, get into fist fights. It was filled with juvenile humor and gameplay, but what really sold it was the setting. Bully was so rebellious, man. It was filled with the type of stuff every kid wishes they could do at school. It wasn't as big as GTA, but you'd expect it to have at least one sequel. While there have been rumors of a Bully 2 in development, there's also been news that it's been cancelled in favor of GTA 6, likely to come out when GTA 5 stops making money in the year 2069.
This is why you don't take rumors seriously. Rockstar is also yet to release that 70s spy game Agent that has had nothing but rumors for ages. Bully 2 doesn't exist until there's a trailer, and even then examples like Dead Island 2 prove that's not always a guarantee. Also, that little quip about GTA 6 is just dumb. I'll probably never have a better chance to say any of this, so I'm just going to say it here. Grand Theft Auto has peaked with 5. That's why there's nothing but rumors about the development of GTA 6. The idea well has already been drilled through the bottom at this point. It's why Cockstar and all their brilliance have only added content to Los Santos instead of laying the groundwork for the next city. It's why all they've added are foreign cars, military vehicles, rocket cars, and flying motorcycles for the players to mess around with. The only type of vehicle they've yet to add to the game at this point is a fucking space shuttle. Why? Because these are ludicrous ideas that would be left on the cutting room floor of any other game. And they know they don't have enough to justify developing an entire new game just for these pothead ideas. Sucks, but that's the situation it's in, so...
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world! Is what must have been said to the Castlevania series because Dracula hasn't been resurrected in quite some time.
Hey, what do you know? Another franchise I've never played before. Shocker.
2D side-scrollers are not a dead genre by any means. I mean, heck, both indie and AAA studios are still pumping out amazing titles with Shovel Knight, Ori, Rayman Legends, Cuphead, Hollow Knight, the list goes on.
Holy shit. He actually can do some research about a genre before making a baseless claim about it. I'm shooketh. Really makes that 3D platformer comment from, 3 minutes ago look puzzling to say the least.
It makes you wonder why the gothic king of 2D side-scrollers hasn't dipped its toes into the water.
There's a handful of reasons as to why the series has gone dark. One of the biggest is that Konami has horrible relations with the fans of their IPs, and they would just as easily invest time and money into a shitty take on the series that flops because of the diehard fans influencing consumers away, putting the series back into the grave for who knows how long. There's also the absence of Koji Igarashi at Konami, so without one of the lead designers of the Castlevania series, it's likely to go about as well as Metal Gear Survive did after Kojima was fired. On that note, Igarashi has gone to make his own small team to develop the spiritual successor of Castlevania, Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, a game that I have played and that I'd recommend to any fan of 2D platformers instead of holding your breath for this series.
Maybe Simon and Richter's appearance in Smash Bros. Will revive the series. Who knows? Just give me Symphony of the Night 2.
It's there. It's called Bloodstain. Get your quick fix on that and then tell me if Symphony of the Night 2 is what you really want. My money's on yes because nostalgia is a powerful drug, but I'll let you prove me wrong.
Marvelous.
Have I played Conquer specifically? No. Have I played the Xbox remake? Fuck no. Have I watched my brother play Conquer fan creations in Project Spark and find it amusing to see his kid-friendly game turn to one with an alcoholic gun-toting squirrel? Odd circumstances, but yes. And that's about as far as my experience with Conquer goes. Well, that and watching a random Let's Play of Bad Fur Day when I spent 4 weeks dying on my couch. But, yeah, that's old news.
Ah, Conquer. You only had one game, but goddamn, did you leave quite an impact. Disguised as just another kid-friendly 3D platformer, Conker's Bad Fur Day has earned a well-deserved cult following over the years. Released during the end of the N64's lifespan, and with limited advertising, Conker never got the chance he really needed. At least Microsoft gave us a kick-ass remake with a full-fledged online multiplayer. Easily one of the funniest games ever made. I mean, who could forget the
Great mighty Pooh.
I did. Even after going out of my way to watch that playthrough of it, I was just that unimpressed with Great Mighty Pooh. The hick pitchfork is more amusing of a boss. Don't at me.
What the damn diddly squat are you doing in my barn?
Well, I never. It's a talking pitchfork.
Not from around here, are you, boy?
No, I'm from the 21st century.
I don't rightly recollect liking your type. Therefore, I conclude that I was gonna kick your butt all around this barn like there's no tomorrow. I was gonna stick my big fork right in yours.
Were your parents related, like before they were married?
You.
Conquer the Squirrel is a classic gaming icon in my mind, and I find it so amazing that he's as well known as he is with just 2 games under his belt. Although, Phil Spencer has recently come out and say that a new Conquer or Banjo-Kazooie will depend on Rareware, so there is hope for this lovable alcoholic squirrel to get a shot at redemption.
I wouldn't count on it. Microsuck has had similar words to say about games that are shelved for good. Where's Scalebound at? That's right.
I say, little fella, you better get this fat-ass bitch off of my back pronto.
12 out of 10 voice acting for 2001 right there. I'll give the game that.
What would you get if you mixed Gundams with Beyblades?
Gurren Lagann.
Man's wrath! Impossible! Explosive slash!
We did it! We did it! We did it!
Good morning, sunshine.
Custom Robo, baby.
What's with this text here? Is it to assume anime games can't be good or underrated? Once again, broad strokes from dumb blokes.
What's this? A series that only had one release outside of Japan? And it was a GameCube exclusive that never re-released on any other platform? You bet your ass it belongs on this list. Custom Robo allowed you to fight and customize robots in an arena battle. It's insanely fun to play with 4 people, easily one of the most unique fighting games ever made. They had guns that shot out fucking dragons or blasted swords into the sky.
That does look pretty entertaining. I might look for an emulator sometime, even if I'll be reduced to bot matches if anything at all.
And the soundtrack full of bangin' slappers.
No lie, that just sounds like the most generic and shitty synthetic noise compilation I've heard in my life. Yeah, music is subjective, but I'm not impressed by the bits shown in this video at all.
Custom Robo lived and died in the era of couch co-op games, so I don't have any faith it'll make a return, especially since, 12 people know about it.
I'll give you another good reason why it should remain a relic of the past. If a game like this was released today, you bet your ass it'd have microtransactions out the ass for customization and maybe even weapons. And no, don't give me the excuse of Nintendo would never. We've seen that they're cashing in on the gullibility of gamers by locking online multiplayer behind a paywall, and becoming reliant on DLC to keep their games more alive than selling a finished product at release. You can even look at their mobile gaming market and see that the disease has already taken hold on Nintendo games just as well. And while we're on the subject of mobile games, Custom Robo has been replaced by a certain game in the same vein. And they just so happen to be this video's sponsor. Nope, just kidding. No company would ever want to pay for my advertising. But for real, War Robots is in the same league of robot fighting games with an emphasis on customization. I downloaded it for research purposes of this video, and what do you know? Just as predicted, there's quite the emphasis on MTs. As you would expect from a free-to-play mobile game. War Robots offers simple microtransactions ranging from $5 all the way up to $100. And it even comes with a subscription service model for those who really have money to burn on an admittedly fun distraction of a game. With this in mind, I double dog dare you to give me a reason not to doubt that Custom Robo, if it ever had a chance at making a comeback, wouldn't follow a business model like this. A model that A, works, B, has maintained a steady population, and C, offers the same gunplay one would hope for in a game of this type. I eagerly await a response that goes beyond, "No, Nintendo would never, because Nintendo does no wrong." For fuck's sake.
But I would kill to play a new game like this in some online multiplayer.
And the developers would kill your wallet if that ever came to be.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
When video games try to copy other successful formulas, they're usually just cheap imitations. We are concerned that Dead Space may be replicating the experience that Resident Evil 4 is known for. Never let the meme die.
Actually, let it die. The thing about memes and jokes is that they eventually have to know when to quit before they get aggravating. This is one of those.
Dead Space took the same things that made RE4 so awesome and brought it to space, amplifying the horror aspects and forcing players to use surgical precision when fighting the terrifying necromorphs. The first 2 games are fantastic iterations on the horror genre, but the third completely derailed the franchise into an action-adventure game with pay-to-win mechanics. Yeah, thanks for that, EA.
I haven't played any of this as expected, but I have watched a review on the first game. And if I recall correctly, the ending of the game goes batshit insane with making Isaac take on a necromorph the size of a moon. So this series has sorta always dabbled into devolving from horror into an action series, in much the same way as Resident Evil, ironically enough. But I'll give you the pay-to-win mechanics of the third game being absolute shit.
With Resident Evil still going strong after countless years, you can't help but think if maybe Dead Space could claw its way back and take a bite out of that same pie.
Resident Evil had to have a fall from grace about the same time of Dead Space's popularity. It took 5 years before there was anything above a modestly praised game as far as Resident Evil goes, after the farce that was RE6. So it's harder than you'd think for something like Dead Space to do the same. Also, while I couldn't find any sources on who still has the rights to the Dead Space IP, EA isn't exactly known for letting studios they shut down keep those copyrights. Look no further than the Ultima series and how the creator cannot develop another entry into the series thanks to the stalemate of the rights with EA. So this is one we can safely say that's trapped in limbo with no end in sight.
I hate you. You're a bad person.
For fuck's sake, am I going to be able to say I played any of the entries in this list? Surely I must, but so far the light at the end of the tunnel, it ain't seeming so bright. Oh well, I guess that just means I've got better taste in games. I'll get this out of the way for when future BioWare titles show up on this list, because I've never played any of them in my life. Crucify me if you like, but I've just never seen the appeal. Dragon Age especially.
Despite releasing 2 games in the last 9 years, Dragon Age fell hard and fast after Origins, devolving into a shitty medieval clone of Mass Effect. Origins was BioWare at their absolute peak, in my opinion. Even if you didn't enjoy the janky combat, the dialogue, story, and companions were so amazing. I've dumped hundreds of hours into Origins and never regret it. Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, on the other hand, you couldn't pay me to play those games. Origins forced me to make some of the hardest decisions ever in a video game, and when I picked the wrong thing, I felt terrible. There are few titles out there that I have such a deep emotional investment with. While there is a new title set to release in 2022, I have no faith that BioWare is going to be able to capture that same lightning in a bottle that they did with Origins.
At this rate, most people have no faith in BioWare releasing a compelling game, period.
It's time to kick ass and disappoint everyone. And I'm done kicking ass.
Not bad. Definitely wasn't among your most groan-worthy jokes.
Would the world be better if Duke Nukem made a return? The answer was no in 2011. Duke Nukem Forever, true to its name, was the most notorious piece of vaporware ever.
Yeah, I've heard these complaints before. You've heard these complaints before. The sperm that makes up our future generations has heard these complaints before. I'm not even going to justify myself for hating this without even experiencing it. This is the exception to the rule, so let's skip ahead until he says something worth talking about.
In development for over a decade, the once iconic badass found his welcome mat covered in shit.
Now what? Shit finger painting?
To be honest, I don't think the Duke deserves to make a comeback. Forever left such a terrible taste in everyone's mouth, and with the Doom series reclaiming its throne, I can't really think of a reason why he should return.
Same, man. I just can't think of any reason why a retro favorite of many boomers should make a comeback. After all, Doom 2016 and Eternal, they're just so perfect they have no need for competition in the boomer shooter subgenre. They're single-handedly keeping that alive for young gamers and boomers alike. Man, what a fucking stupid word, boomer. I hate that I've had to say that so many times just so people know what I'm talking about.
Look, Todd. You've been re-releasing Skyrim for the past 9 years, but if you re-release it one more time, then we better take a station break. But now I'm announcing a new Skyrim port right here. Well, I think that you probably won't announce it again. I bet I do. Alright then. Skyrim VR. Okay, so Elder Scrolls isn't quite dead, forgotten, or forsaken, but
nothing. It fails to meet all the criteria established in the beginning of this video. It hasn't abandoned the elements that made it its own thing, it's only tweaked them. It hasn't been forgotten, as otherwise new ports of Skyrim wouldn't be made, and it most certainly hasn't killed interest the fans had in the series. Nor has it even had a botched release the likes of which only Bethesda can offer. So it has no place whatsoever on this list by your own standards. Do I even justify commenting on your points here?
Jesus Christ, man. 9 years since Skyrim came out. As I talked about before, we're pretty much in that age where game developers are just trying to milk their existing products as much as humanly possible. Of course, Elder Scrolls has gone the same route as KOTOR in that they've been focusing on an MMORPG instead of a mainline single player.
That was painful to sit through yet another broken record of a man relisting off his complaints about a series that found its perpetual loop. Yeah, I said you should join this man's Discord, you'd make great chums, hey. Anyways, to go over those inane broad strokes, yes, we're in that stagnant stage with our entertainment being composed almost entirely of remakes and re-releases. Nobody is denying that. You've addressed this elsewhere, and think Skyrim is a prime example when in reality it's one of the lesser offenders in gaming. 9 years of Skyrim editions and remasters is nothing compared to the last 18 years of Call of Duty releasing once a year and running 15 of those games off the same outdated engine with minor improvements. Also, ESO was an experiment that took off because by the late 2000s, a vast majority of the gaming population in North America and Europe, they had some form of an internet connection, and could be coaxed into buying games like ESO and the Old Republic. Not to mention, Warcraft also changed into its MMO phase and found more success with its customers there, just like ESO. They tapped into a viable market and hit the jackpot for quite some time. And it sucks because, like you, I'd much rather play a single-player game than deal with my inconsistent internet connection, hoping to stay in a match with my friends. And it's because of that I've ignored ESO all this time, and I will continue to do so. But to say a genre change like that is what's killed the Elder Scrolls series on the single-player front is absolutely retarded. Particularly when the former style is returning sometime this decade. End of discussion.
Boy, this is going to be a controversial take. Fallout has been all over the place during its tenure.
It's been in 2 genres. 3 if you really want to consider 3 and 4 more of shooters than actual RPGs, like some fans do. That's nothing compared to something like Halo, which has been a first-person shooter series, an RTS series, a twin-stick shooter arcade series, an on-rails arcade game, almost a Lego type of game, and now an open-world FPS in Infinite. So this take is much less controversial and more exaggerated, plain and simple.
Transforming from an isometric RPG to a first-person shooter RPG to yet another Mass Effect clone. And then 76, a title that sits nice and comfortably next to Ride to Hell Retribution. But Fallout strayed from the formula that pretty much everyone loved with New Vegas and 3 in favor of... I don't know.
Nobody does. Even Bethesda and Todd Howard have admitted they fucked up with the lack of direction in that one. Source in the description. It may be on IGN, but the words are from Todd's mouth, so take it for that.
Regardless, 76 tarnished Bethesda and the Fallout brand, and they need to figure out what fans want and meet that demand if Fallout is going to have any chance of reversing its status as a laughingstock.
Oh my god, that's great.
While I disagree that 76 was the straw that broke the reputation of the Bethesda camel's back, I do agree that the Fallout series needs a big push to save itself from irrelevance. Most would claim all that needs to be done is for Microsoft to allow Bethesda and Obsidian Studios to work together on a new Fallout game. I don't agree with that mentality, especially after seeing how the Outer Worlds played out, but then again, I have no interest in the Fallout series whatsoever, so I'm the last person to suggest ways it can improve.
F-Zero. One of the few franchises that's had its representative in more Smash games than its own series. Everyone knows who Captain Falcon is.
Yes!
But probably 1% of those people have ever played an F-Zero game.
I can attest to this. I've only ever played Smash Melee, and that's as far as my experience with Captain Falcon goes.
Captain Falcon was meant to be Nintendo's cool new mascot back in the late 90s, but it never really caught on.
Probably because Nintendo drones were too busy jacking off to pixel art of Samus.
F-Zero was this fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping racing series that may not have stood out or caused shockwaves when a new game released, but the series was special because of how it pushed the technology of the time with every new installment. And no, Mario Kart is not a replacement for F-Zero. Its high-speed racing ran at 60 frames per second on the Nintendo 64. What? How? At least the series died with honor and grace.
It's because of that, and the aforementioned risk of Nintendo butchering a game with DLC and MTs, that the series is best left in the past. I'd rather have that than all the man-baby cries leaving me a year's worth of migraines every time I open up YouTube for gaming news.
Every title is a technological marvel. There's not a single bad F-Zero game out there. So why has this series been forgotten by Nintendo? Well, there's an amazing video by No Strings PRD who essentially says Nintendo doesn't want to develop games that don't push the boundaries or reinvent the wheel. And since GX was the perfect send-off, they have no reason to make another. But in this humble acting male's opinion, the captain deserves another chance to blow people's minds with ludicrous speed.
Nah, I say let a new series of badass racing games come out and do that. I'd be way more impressed with that than I would be with an unnecessary sequel. But in my perspectives and all.
I've had the same dream every day for the last 10 years. A new Gauntlet game. It'll never happen, but everyone who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s knew about Midway Games.
Well, allow me to be the exception there, because this is the second time I've ever heard of Midway or Gauntlet. I know I've heard of it in some other list of dead games, and that's about it. Alright, so what I gathered from that equally cringe-inducing video, the last Gauntlet game that wasn't a reboot had the same rocky reputation as the Devil May Cry reboot from 2013, where the style of gameplay, tone of the series overall, and the goofy fun identity it had, that was shattered for the sake of keeping up with older demographics. So, yeah, that's all I've really got to say to this series. I say we let it enjoy the grave it's dug for itself.
And must have played one of these arcade machines back in the day. So much fun with 4 players, a true dungeon crawler with epic bosses and a satisfying grind.
I'll admit, it doesn't look half bad. Might look for an emulator for that one too. I'll decide then if it's a series worth revitalizing, but odds are, it's not.
This is like playing Bubsy 3D at Barack Obama's house.
Oh, nigga, don't hate me because I'm beautiful, nigga. Maybe if you got rid of that old yee-yee ass haircut you got, you get some bitches on your dick. Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha will call your dog ass if she ever stop fucking with that brain surgeon, the lawyer she fucking with, nigga.
Gex isn't known for much outside his meme-worthy status nowadays, and truth be told, his jokes are really outdated.
Note to self, don't drink tap water at Jerry Garcia's.
But the first game was one of the most challenging 2D platformers I've ever played. Is that a reason for him to return? Nope. Gex is best left in the 90s.
So, because of outdated reference humor and a challenge in the platforming, it's best left in the 90s? I don't necessarily disagree that there isn't much left in the idea well for this series, but if the 2 factors you listed are all the justification you're gonna give, well, that opens up cans of worms with other series that, by the same logic, should be left in the past. One key example would be Conquer, because of its usage of reference humor, albeit not to an embarrassing degree. It had fallen into the same trap, so you might want to rethink your argumentation next time.
In the age of skating...
Okay, so at first when I watched this video, I didn't notice it. But on my second viewing with headphones, that goddamn tune made me want to jam a knife into my ears. It caught me so off guard. Having had to listen to it multiple times in the editing process of this, its effect has gone dull on me, but it's still annoying. And when he later claims the soundtrack of this franchise is dope, I must wonder why this damn white noise had to be chosen, even though it's incredibly distracting from what he's saying. So, in the spirit of not giving you fellas in my audience a migraine, allow me to tone that noise the fuck down and put captions on until it's over. Thank me later.
Games, none stood out more than Jet Set Radio Future, boasting one of the dopest soundtracks known to man. Cel-shaded animation and gameplay that oozed style. Spraying graffiti, sticking it to the man, Jet Set Radio is a true Rebels game. In 2017, though, Sony had expressed interest in a new game, Jet Set Radio Evolution, but Sega turned it down for unknown reasons. The fate of this franchise may not be largely important in the grand scheme of things, but it doesn't look like Sega is going to be breathing life into it anytime soon.
Skating games in general are little more than relics of the past. They can sit comfortably with Guitar Hero and Rock Band in our memories.
You cannot hide from what you once were, Revan.
Bleh. Star Wars. Double bleh for showing this ugly character whose name I forgot.
Recognize that you were once the Dark Lord, and know that I have taken your place.
Honestly, I could pretty much put every BioWare franchise in this video because they are a shell of their former selves. The first KOTOR was a brilliant masterpiece, one of the GOATs.
This is the only part of the KOTOR series I've watched a Let's Play of, and it's a pretty imaginative little game with better settings than what the prequels did, but it's still okay at best like said prequels.
The second somehow had better writing, gameplay, branching paths, and characters, despite being blatantly unfinished because of its year-long development cycle. That's right, they made KOTOR 2 in 1 freaking year. Yet for some godforsaken reason, they decided to go the MMORPG route instead of turning the series into a trilogy.
Oh gee, I wonder why. Couldn't be that such a thing is lucrative and can be easily monetized. Not saying it is, mind you, I have no idea. But if that doesn't answer your question, I don't know what will.
KOTOR 2's story left off in a completely ambiguous state. And it's not like Star Wars games don't make money. It's not like people don't know what Knights of the Old Republic is. But BioWare had their chance and they chose something different. They went down the dark path. There's no redemption. The KOTOR 3 I'd want to see, doubt it will ever be made in my lifetime.
Especially with modern BioWare having lost all of its luster after Mass Effect 3, Andromeda, and Anthem, it's never happening. Or if it does happen, it'll be the death knell of the series. Plain and simple.
Remember when Rockstar used to develop video games?
You could have cut out one of those remembers. It made you sound pretty repetitive there. Could have done some trick, like a rewind sound effect to go with that black and white filter. Anything, really. Yes, I know I'm being nitpicky, but I've made my point by being that type of an asshole.
Who could forget L.A. Noire, an absolute slam dunk that pushed the boundaries of technology, with every line of dialogue being recorded with motion capture. The visuals are timeless, if a bit hilarious at times. Not the most action-packed Rockstar game, but a humble dive into the detective noir genre that is rarely seen in the world of video games. Again, the story was pretty much wrapped up, but hey, performed really well. Even without the stunning Cole Phelps, I think we'd all love to see Rockstar give this formula another shot.
As you might have guessed, it just never struck a chord with me enough to want to play it. So I'm going to take your words with a grain of salt bigger than the shaker. I've never been that huge of a Rockstar fan anyhow, as you might have guessed also.
Like BioWare, pretty much every franchise that Valve has made could be in this video too.
Not exactly. Since their multiplayer games still at the very least have a moderately healthy population. BioWare's bread and butter is the single player, so they're far more appropriate of the moniker of dead than something like TF2, Dota 2, or Counter-Strike.
It's mind-boggling how they released 2 Left 4 Dead games in back-to-back years and have done almost nothing with the franchise since. Far be it from me to criticize Valve's methods of madness, but come on, dude. Left 4 Dead 3 would sell like hotcakes. But hey, if Valve isn't going to do anything with their IPs, at least someone else is willing to try. Back 4 Blood is a new spiritual successor, and is being made by some of the original creators. With similar gameplay, it's looking to be a real treat. I can't wait to sink my hands into some intense 4v4 zombie killing action.
Bravo for not using the Valve can't count to 3 meme. Must have taken some brass balls. Also, Left 4 Dead 3 would be questionable, since this whole zombie fad is a shell of its former self and consumers they've voiced their consent countless times. I know I'd steer clear if this was a case of a delayed sequel that has no charm or charisma like what was in the other 2, that's for sure.
Mass Effect, much like Fallout, is coming off a glitchy technical nightmare that spits on the legacy of previous games.
See? No reason we can't be civilized.
Gee, thanks for the reminder of that disgusting 55 gigabytes of malware disguised as a game.
The original trilogy was a masterclass in immersive storytelling, branching paths, likable companions, and solid gameplay.
Whoa, 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 whoa. That might be your opinion on it, but when you state it like that, oof. Far be it from a man like me, who has never even touched the Steam page of a Mass Effect game in their life to say this, but that quote of the trilogy being a masterclass in those elements is debatable to say the least. And instead of talking out of my ass about examples like Marauder, Shields, and other overused criticisms of Mass Effect 3, I instead point you towards GameCare Network's redone version of everything wrong with Mass Effect 3, where he goes into detail explaining why the third game is fucked from the word go on both story and gameplay, and abandons the established themes and logic of the other 2 games in order to tell the hot garbage of a story that the third one is. Yes, I know the dings can get annoying, especially over the course of 2.5 hours worth of criticism. But I can assure you, it holds merit, as even die-hard Mass Effect fans have come to agree with his perspective that more than just the ending of the game is foobar. Link is in the description.
All the BioWare trademarks you expect. It's no wonder why so many other franchises copied the Shepard-esque main character, dialogue wheel, and style of Mass Effect. Like BioShock, the story is pretty much complete, and Andromeda was nothing more than a lazy cash grab. Waiting for a new Mass Effect? I wouldn't hold your breath.
Agreed. I imagine someday another swing will be taken, if not by BioWare, then by some other developer that EA dumps their responsibility on. And from there, the series can get fucked one last time to assure the audience that it's dead.
You've heard this story before. An incredible series of games beloved by millions is capped off with the worst entry possible, and it's just left in that state.
They played us like a damn...
Metal Gear is the premier stealth series that everyone knows and loves. So it was a real interesting choice that Konami fired Hideo Kojima and made a shitty zombies game instead of working with him.
Considering Konami is right up there with EA and Activision in terms of bad management decisions in the gaming industry, I'm more surprised that Kojima stayed as long as he did.
That's why we have Death Stranding, so we're 0 for 2 in that regard.
I hate to break it to you. Well, actually no I don't, you're pretty dense in this regard. But Death Stranding was an inevitability with the amount of blowjobs the gaming community has given Kojima over the 30 years. Konami may have tried their bullshit to stop it, but eventually, Norman Reedus' hiking and pissing would have been on our systems and praised by his blind fanboys for being innovative, fresh, and a trailblazer for future games. This is why fanboy mentality should evaporate in the coming decades. Brand loyalty is totally fine, but turning an artist into a religious figure, that only breeds stupid internet slap fights.
Interesting tidbit I just found, but Sony is looking to buy the rights to Metal Gear, Silent Hill, and Castlevania from Konami. I hope they sell all of them because fuck Konami. The future of Metal Gear depends on those negotiations. But even if Sony doesn't get the rights, Solid Snake had a solid run.
He had a mixed run, to say the least. The series should have ended after the third one. From what I hear, 4 was okay. Fuck 5. Revengeance, I'm not even going to go there, otherwise I'm going to be here all day.
Samus has been stuck in a rut for a long time, despite being one of Nintendo's most celebrated IPs.
Fun fact, it was the inclusion of Metroid on this list of dead franchises that was the biggest inspiration for why I did this response video. I started off puzzled here, and his retarded logic to justify its inclusion was what made me go, wow, what a shit video this is turning out to be. But you know what, I'll let him say his piece before responding, and just so we're on the same page, if you haven't figured it out by my previous jabs at Nintendo and other segments, I'm not a Nintendo fan, nor a Metroid fan. I can't even remember if I played the Prime games on the GameCube when I was a kid or not. That's how little I care about this franchise. So shut up with your assumptions that I'm some triggered fanboy. Now that that's out of the way, do continue, Mr. Act.
Unlike Castlevania, Metroid kicks ass in both 2D side-scroller and FPS genres. What is there to say about the Prime trilogy that hasn't been said about Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers? Unfortunately, this is one franchise that Nintendo keeps fucking with. Other M was a cringe fest, and aside from the remake of Metroid 2, there hasn't been much to get excited about. So it comes as no surprise that Nintendo has no idea when Prime 4 will come out. A potential 2023 release date? Gonna be a long wait, Metroid fans.
Alrighty Rooney, so let's go over the reasons he uses to justify calling Metroid, the Prime series in particular, dead, forgotten, and forsaken. One botched cringe fest of a release in Other M, which, from what I understand, that's not even part of the Prime games whatsoever. It's a spin-off that bastardizes all parts of the Metroid lore. So that's just flat-out misunderstood. Followed by there being nothing but remakes of the classics to sate the fans' appetites. Not much to be excited about, aside from news that a new sequel the fans begged for years is on the horizon. And no concrete knowledge of when to mark the calendars and plan the weekend to play through the game. All because the company that owns it has done some shitty things in the past with this series. You know, that sounds awfully similar to another series that's often the most cherished product of a given company. Fuck, it sounds way too similar actually. But I noticed when I was editing this, there's no timestamp for Halo having a spot on this list, nor even a passing mention anywhere in the video. It totally should, since it meets all the criteria set for Metroid, and the first set of qualifications established in the beginning as well. It's abandoned its unique elements and is nothing like its former self. Hasn't had a mainline entry in 5 years, and the last entry was an arcade game that nobody's been able to play thanks to Corona. Literally the only prerequisite not met is that it's not forgotten thanks to the little renaissance Halo has been going through on PC. So what the hell? Why does it get the special treatment when it meets 5 of the requirements to be on here, and only 1 that offers any semblance of exemption? Oh, we didn't think that far ahead now, did we? Further proof that fanboy mentality will make you say some really, really dumb shit. Shit that equally dumb people will gobble up, without question. Fucking hell. Let's move on. It's a good thing he didn't really make an ass of himself and put the Tales series on the here, because then I would actually be pissed off right now.
Paper Mario is the most heartbreaking franchise I'm a fan of.
Okay.
Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts may have spat on the series, but that was only one game. Intelligent Systems have basically made Nuts and Bolts 1, 2, and 3.
Why are we still here?
They just have no concept of why people love the first 2 games at all. A series that used to be a dynamic turn-based RPG with some of the best writing in the industry has turned into nothing more than paper jokes and gimmicky gameplay. It's so predictable and played out. After Origami King, I have no faith that a good Paper Mario is gonna ever make its way to shelves. Like Squidward, I've laid my hopes and dreams to rest.
At least you sobered up to that one. I have no input for anything else since I forgot Paper Mario even had a sequel in the first place.
Hey, Act-Man, you played any good puzzle games recently? Fuck no, I haven't, and you know why? 'Cause puzzle games belong on mobile devices. At least that's what we've been led to believe in the last decade.
Oh, for sure. We have not had any major release of puzzle-centric games on PC or console in the last decade. None whatsoever. It's on the same thin wire as rhythm games. They're that hard to find on anything other than a fucking phone.
Portal was a home run straight out of left field. The Portal gun and GLaDOS became gaming icons overnight. Honestly, it can't be that hard to develop a new game.
Wait, what was that?
Honestly, it can't be that hard to develop a new game.
One more time.
Honestly, it can't be that hard to develop a new game.
Just one more time.
Honestly, it can't be that hard to develop a new game.
What the fuck? I think it's best we all pretend that dumpster fire of a sentence was just some shared hallucination we all had.
It was a nice change of pace to slow things down and play something that got you to think critically, and we really could use it because puzzle games are a dying breed.
They're really not, as I've just demonstrated a few seconds ago. Just like racing games, they're not at their evolutionary end, they just need a new spark of energy put forth.
But yeah, just keep building up that Dota 2 card game. That's what the fans really want. Hey Valve, if you're gonna take Half-Life to VR, why not try that with Portal?
VR Portal would be a disaster. A vomit-inducing disaster if not properly thought out. You can find the puzzle gaming itch elsewhere, and not just on the shitty Google Play Store.
Speaking of mobile, a lot of these once divine franchises have been relegated to mobile games that nobody shakes 2 shits at. Remember Prince of Persia? Hot damn, this was like Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed combined. Even got its own film starring Jake Gyllenhaal back in 2010.
And that film was absolutely atrocious. So what's your point?
Older gamers will remember this series as being the precursor to Assassin's Creed, and since that series gets a new release each year, there ain't much room for Prince of Persia.
That line of thinking only works if you exclude the other Ubi shit games plopped out on a regular basis. Not to mention, we'd be in the same situation as the Oddworld series, where the best they could do for modern audiences is remake the old games with a new take on the graphics and tone the difficulty way the fuck down, for the sake of appealing to the masses. New and tasty sucked ass, and I'd imagine a fully fleshed out Prince of Persia would be the same way. Or there's also the alternative, since it is modern day Ubisoft, they'd crank up the difficulty to absurd lengths in order to incentivize their time-saver microtransactions. Either way, fuck it, it's best left where it's at, because the last one on console, it ended poorly. That's all I remember.
Dear Kathleen Kennedy, Disney, and George Lucas, what happened to Sev?
Whether this is meant to be a joke or not is irrelevant, because you're barking up the wrong tree on all fronts. Kathleen doesn't give a fuck about any of the characters unless they lack a dick. Disney only cares about the clones the kiddies buy the action figures of. And George, he had all of 2 named clones in his movies, neither of which even allude to anything to do with Sev. He's not a creation of any of the above's mind, so asking them for the answer is wasted breath.
That's all I've wanted to know for the last 15 years, and I ain't gonna read a book to find out.
then you can get fucked, because that's all you're going to get in terms of answers. Though in fairness, you're going to get fucked whether you read it or not. As from what I've heard from the Star Wars readers who don't suck up to the garbage thrown their way, the Republic Commando novels are god-awful. Terribly written on a level comparable to Brian Reed's work with Halo 5. So this is one mystery best left unsolved for your sanity's sake, Budro.
Republic Commando is the most competent Star Wars FPS game, counting single player only. A squad-based shooter that had you whoop some separatist ass with your elite group of commandos.
And Republic Commando is fine. It has some wonky hitboxes on PC, and I guess maybe the Xbox isn't as bad since you got aim assist, but who knows. Plus, I never played it until after LucasArts had already bit the dust, so meh.
And it ended on a cliffhanger, man. There were rumors of an Imperial Commando game a couple years ago, but I doubt EA will use the rights to Star Wars to invest in something like that.
Ironic.
Their exclusivity license for Star Wars is almost up, I believe. Wouldn't know since I gave my last fuck for Star Wars and its games 3 years ago, and I'm not infecting my browser history with that shit for even a minute.
The cancellation of Kojima's Silent Hills in 2015 was a wrench up the butthole for gamers everywhere. This trailer blew people's minds. Silent Hill defined a new generation of horror games, focusing on psychological terror instead of cheap jump scares. It paved the way for games like Amnesia, BioShock, and Dead Space. Despite its influence, the world has not been kind to this series, and it's a damn shame.
The series is past its prime. The later games saw it really stretching for its scares and gameplay according to my minimalistic research and the bits I remember from playing the fourth game. Let it rest with dignity.
While Spyro and Crash Bandicoot both got a remastered trilogy, Crash was the one that made a real comeback in a brand new game aptly titled, It's About Time. But the lovable purple dragon could use some attention too.
I don't know about that.
While his games after the first three were a bit shaky, Spyro offers a more lighthearted atmosphere that is sorely missed today. Bring back Spyro.
You see, we're forgetting who has the rights to a series like Spyro, none other than Activision themselves. And while they wouldn't necessarily butcher a platformer series for the sake of profit the way they have COD, unless of course it's something gimmicky like Skylanders for example, they'd still be liable to make some questionable decisions with Spyro, such as whoring him out to the extent Crash Bandicoot was in the early 2000s. So be careful what you wish for.
In a market oversaturated with first-person shooters, Time Splitters was a breath of fresh air that had players battling across time in the past, present, and future. What a premise! Future Perfect executed this perfectly. Pun intended.
You know what? That game almost had me intrigued enough to want to play it, up until this and a soon-to-be-shown pun from the game. Think I'll skip on Time Splitters after all.
With its diverse array of weapons, enemies, and locations, the series has always been known for its irreverent humor.
Time to split!
I'll get the next one.
So you get to play as a parody of The Rock, for God's sake. They were on crack when they made Future Perfect. It has the most ridiculous lineup of characters ever. Now it appears that co-creator Steve Ellis is currently working quietly on an unannounced Time Splitters product. Hopefully this product is an actual video game, because that would be awesome.
Anything's fair game in this situation, though just like with Castlevania's case where one of the studio heads goes on to make a whole new series in the same vein as what put them on the map, I believe that'd be for the best in this scenario.
Beautiful Joe.
Haven't played it and I don't care about the description. At least the end is in sight. I've had enough of this video, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm just gonna speed this section up until I find something worth talking about.
Last but not least, Beautiful Joe. Goddamn, these two games were brimming with style and charm. Follow the story of Joe, whose girlfriend is captured while watching a movie, and he's thrust into movie land, where he becomes a superhero. This was a unique cel-shaded 2D side-scroller for the GameCube, and you could string together the sickest combos, slow down time, reflect bullets, and just whoop some ass. At first glance, Beautiful Joe seems like one of those characters that's trying hard to be cool and fails, but this man is a legend. Dare I say it, deserves a spot in Smash.
Nah, he wouldn't fit the Smash art style. Like at all. Granted, neither does Cuphead, but he's a subject for another time. Joe is much more at home in Marvel vs. Capcom titles. Whether or not that series can make a comeback from its atrocious Infinite release is yet to be seen.
Well, as I pay my respects to many dead, forgotten, or forsaken game franchises, I wonder what the future holds in 2021. Perhaps the new Dragon Age will be a return to form. Back 4 Blood could revive a genre that Valve didn't care about. And I never thought I'd say it, but there's hope for a new Banjo-Kazooie.
Dragon Age? It's got 1,000,001 shot. Back 4 Blood? Looks neat, but I'll sit this one out on the sidelines. I'm real skeptical about how it'll launch. Banjo-Kazooie? Don't make me laugh. Your only cited example is a reach and a half, my man.
But many of these franchises will simply exist where they are now. Some deserve to be laid to rest, and others perished before their time.
And that's for the best. To be cliched as fuck, don't be sad it's over, smile that it happened. Some of these entries were cases where I'd like to imagine the developers would simply ask, where the fuck do you want us to go from here? Others a case of, you're still actually playing that? Like, fuck, there comes a time when you gotta say enough is enough.
The game industry is always changing, and it's never too late for an old classic to bring us the joy we experienced so long ago. Now just make one more Conquer game and I can go home, okay? Thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, leave a like if you did. Let me know your favorite dead, forgotten, or forsaken franchise in the comments below.
Yeah, no, that's all this video I'm showing, since his outros give me PTSD to the times when I quoted him in my essays on the Amino app. Oh, the cringe. Anyways, since I've disliked and gone through the effort of making this whole response video, I'm obviously not going back to comment what franchises I'd consider dead or forgotten, partially out of a sliver of spite to not go back to the people I respond to, but mostly because I can't think of many dead franchises that I had any prior investment in. Most games that I can even think of that somewhat meet the standards set in this video, well, they're not even franchises but single entries and experimental games. Batman Arkham maybe? Then again, the story is wrapped up and the gameplay was exhaustive of its ideas by Origins. So Blood Rain comes close, but even with that, the terminal cuts of the first two, they were made last year. I may have listed the Ultima series earlier on, but I've never played any of them and I have no intention to, but it's dead for sure. But there I go rambling, trying to come up with an answer to the question posed by someone I lost commonality with a long time ago. I think I better wrap this up before my outro is a huge train wreck. I'm pretty sure after going through the motions of putting this together, I'm done with Actman's channel. His older videos, such as the Halo 5 series and some of his Call of Duty videos up until Black Ops 2 and stuff from that time period, I can go back to it and it's both entertaining and informative. But in the last 2 years, he's gotten shitty with his argumentation. My favorite example is how, in his prime, the characters in a game like Halo Reach were criticized for being bland and generic military stereotypes, where the most fans and critics could even remember about them is the order in which they died. Yet he made some pretty good arguments as to why they're not as bad and bland of characters, only to turn around and criticize Halo Wars for the same characterization. Standards have obviously changed for him, and seemingly for no reason. So I'm going to save myself the hair tearing and just quit trying to understand his point of view from here on out. Channel was good for a time, but that time has come and gone, so it's time I do as well. He's made a cameo in 2 of my other videos, so it's just time to move on. Also, this is just my preference, but that new channel icon is hideous. I prefer the 2017 and 2018 look, but meh. Time for you boy to move on, and I guess that's it. Talk to y'all later.